Welcome to the Heidi Thorne Show. I'm your host, Heidi Thorne, and in this podcast, I share my real-world self-publishing and small business experience with you. So let's get started with today's show. Now, I had a great question come to me on Twitter from one of my very good editor friends about whether an author who's also a speaker or coach or consultant should use a CRM system. Now, what a CRM system is, stands for Customer Relationship Management. Now, in this podcast, it might sound like it's going to be for a lot of business authors, but it can also apply to regular authors. And I'm going to address the more general author audience first, and then dig in a little bit later for the business side of the equation. Now, for most authors, most self-published authors who are strictly selling books, a CRM system, a big CRM system, is probably overkill and not worth the money. Now, CRM systems, you can find a number of them on the web. Some of them are built in with email marketing systems. There's just so many of them, out there. I can't even discuss any one particular one. But what a CRM system does is it monitors the customer's purchasing behavior. It stores their contact information. It makes notes about their preferences, what's going on with the client or the customer. So it's really like a big database for each customer. Now it sounds like a great idea for your customers, which would be your book buyers, right? Sure, you'd kind of like to know more about your customers, but here's why it doesn't work for most self-published authors who are just concentrating on selling books. It's because the purchase that these customers are making is so small, it doesn't even warrant the expense for the CRM system. Now, there are some CRM systems that might be free, or they might have a free trial, but if they charge you even as little as $20 a month, based on my self-publishing survey, with a good chunk of authors making less than $1,000 a year and many making less than $100, it doesn't even make sense. You're going to waste all of your royalties and net profits on the CRM system. So I really think for the vast majority of self-published authors, it's just overkill and probably not worth it, unless you have a massive audience. But even then, I wouldn't even suggest it because the purchase price from each customer is so very small. Even if customers, let's say you publish a book this year and they buy all the possible editions of it, the audiobook, the print book, and the ebook, their purchase is still probably going to be in the neighborhood of less than $50. And you're not going to make that whole $50 either. So I just can't see it. And especially if you do publish on platforms like Kindle Direct Publishing, again, your royalties are going to be a fraction of the actual sale. So it just does not make sense. Now, if you want to use something kind of like a CRM system to track your fans and followers, or so that you can keep in contact with them with an email marketing and whatnot, you might want to consider platforms such as MailChimp, which is free for a certain number, up to a certain number of subscribers or emails sent out. And it's very inexpensive. It's a really powerful system that I love. And I transferred over to that a few years ago because I was using Aweber in the past, and that is another fabulous platform if you do need some more powerful platform than a MailChimp, or you don't want to pay for MailChimp's upgraded features. Aweber is a great one. Constant Contact, there's a number of them out there, and they can kind of act like a pseudo CRM system, because what they'll do is they'll track your emails, and they can help you with gain subscribers, with opt-in forms, and try and keep it compliant. And so they do provide a lot of service there, but that's about the most I would ever do in terms of managing my followers with a CRM type system. So let's talk about those authors who might be publishing more for a business sense. They're probably speakers or coaches, consultants, and a CRM system for them might make more sense. But even then, I think I'd really question it, because there usually are monthly fees involved, and you have to look at it like, what do you want to do with this? Now, speakers, coaches, and consultants are usually publishing not really to sell books per se, but they're publishing books to sell their other services. So then the CRM system becomes more of a customer management tool for their business overall. And those might be very high dollar value purchases. So for example, if you have consulting or things like that, maybe the people would have on a continuing basis, they could be spending thousands of dollars with you a year. So then it kind of makes sense. So for example, in my past, I sold advertising. I was an editor, advertising director, and I had dozens of clients that I needed to monitor, when their contracts were up and things like that. So a CRM system would have been good for that. And because the dollar value was high enough, for me to justify an expense in a CRM system. There's a ton of them. Like I said, there's a ton of them out there, and there's new ones coming out all the time. So you just have to do a search on the web and see which one fits your budget. But for overall, I would say most authors don't need a CRM, but for speakers and coaches and consultants, it might make more sense. And here's the criteria that you would use to decide whether a CRM makes sense. The customer spends a lot of money with you, and I'm not just talking about $100. I'm talking thousands of dollars. The potential for them to spend with you on a regular basis makes sense. Also, if you are going to have a continuing relationship with the customer. And most book buyers, they're not looking for a continuing relationship with you. The continuing relationship with your standard just book buyers, if you're just an author trying to sell books, those CRMs, I would say, would be more likely social media. You want to get followers on social. You want them to follow you on your blog, your Instagram, your LinkedIn, your YouTube channel, all of those things. They are followers of your work, and the dollar value is small. So you really just want them to follow you. You're not going to have that intimate one-to-one relationship that you would in a coaching or consulting scenario. Now for speakers, that's a little bit different situation too. You may have continuing engagements with certain speaking clients, but in my experience, except for maybe educational things, which you might be doing with an association over time, most keynote type speaking engagements are one-offs. So they're going to hire you this year, and chances are you're not going to keynote again at their next event because they want somebody new the next time. So then you have to wonder, well, does CRM make sense there? Well, I would say it really depends on the type of speaking engagements you do. Chances are they're very high dollar value, but at the same point, speaking engagements, especially for keynoters, can be one-offs. So you might just want to keep them on a mailing list as well, because they're just not going to be hiring you over and over again, except if you provide like some sort of educational presentation where they might want you at every one of their events or conferences, that type of thing. But again, you really have to look at your business and see if it makes sense. So I hope you found that helpful. And if you did, I would appreciate it if you would go over to Apple Podcast and give the Heidi Thorne Show a nice rating and review. And of course, I hope you will subscribe to the podcast, The Heidi Thorne Show, so that you don't miss an episode. I'm on the major podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Podbean, AnyPod. I'm on the major platforms. So subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And here's a special announcement. Apple Podcast is now available for Alexa devices. It's available as an Alexa skill. So all you have to do is install the Apple Podcast Alexa skill, and you can listen to all your favorite Apple podcasts on your Alexa device. Yay, finally! So I'm going to include a link in the show description on how to get that set up. And if you like the video version better, no problem. Just go over to YouTube and subscribe to my Heidi Thorne YouTube channel, and definitely make sure you click on the notifications so that you'll know when a new video is out for you to view. And I would appreciate it if you would share the Heidi Thorne Show with your friends on social media. Now, my books are available on Amazon, Audible, and Apple Books. You just have to search for my name, Heidi Thorne, and my author page will come up, and you'll see all my books that are available. If you'd like to connect with me, my website is very simply HeidiThorne.com. Thank you so much for listening and for your support. I'll look forward to talking with you again in the next episode, and in the meantime, have a great day.